A warm welcome to another edition of the Magpie Circle. Quite an historic one as well. As we're recording this, it's just gone past the 12th anniversary of the passing of the late, great Jimmy Sirrel, and one of the great players that did great service for Notts and for Jimmy is, of course, Jon Nixon. So, John, first thing, a very warm welcome to the Magpie Circle.
Thank you very much, Paul. It's very kind of you.
And I've got to say, you look incredibly well for 72.
Well, I suppose I'm fairly lucky. Yeah, having said that, my wife has worked wonders on this bloody beard this morning to make me look. She said, you can't go on there with a beard like that. And I said, well, I've only grown it in lockdown. No, they won't recognise me. But she's... If I look good, then it's Tracy's fault. If I look rubbish, then I've had something to do with it.
Hey, you look very, very dapper. Thank you very much for joining us. And let's just run through a quick few stats. 201 first-team appearances, 38 goals. Wow. You were an absolutely integral part of the renaissance of Notts County Football Club under Jimmy Sirrel. The 4th Division Championship side, the promotion-winning team in Division 3 in the space of 3 years. And actually, you hardly missed a game for most of those years. And today, we're clearly going to talk a little bit about Jimmy, what he was like as a manager, what he was like as a man at this special time of his 12th anniversary of passing away. But already, just chatting in advance, we know you've got some good stories to tell about Neil Warnock. And of course, doesn't get much bigger and better than Tommy Lawton, all-time great for the club. And let's start with that, because it's Tommy Lawton that kind of got you in to Meadow Lane. You'd had a spell at Derby, you drifted back into non-league, take up the story, you get a call from Tommy Lawton.
Well, you see, I drifted out of the game, and because I didn't make it at Derby, I was a bit miffed at that, and obviously thought, well, that's it, I'm a failure. and so I went to Teachers Training College, and I played for Ilkeston Town at the same time. And a Notts County man, Dave Agnew, was the player manager, and we won the Midland League the year that I was there. I looked at the trophy the other day, and I thought, hell, I mean, it might look a little bit tatty, but it's still there. And I think that was 67, 68, and I knew that the manager didn't like me. He didn't really like me. He'd play me when he had to, but we didn't get on particularly well together. But obviously, Ilkeston is my hometown, and I felt very privileged because I have some photographs of way back in the 50s, and there's a photograph of the crowd at Ilkeston Town, and my next door neighbour used to take me when I was about 5, 6, 7. And on the photograph, unfortunately it's black and white, but you can see the crowd there, and there's a little lad sat on the ground in front of the crowd. And I am sat there, no word of lie, with a dicky bow and a striped blazer on. My mother always used to send me out in that. She used to send me to school in it. So, you see, when I played at Notts and everybody gave me a stick, it bore nothing to the stick I'd gathered way from a little lad. Because even before that, my mum she'd send me out in, and I've got a photograph there of white silk sort of shorts. They look more like knickers, so there's no wonder I was affected. There is no wonder. But
anyway, let's go back to so you've been in, you've had the shot at the pro ranks with Derby that didn't work out.
Yes.
You're now in non-league. Ilkeston won the Midland League.
Yeah.
You get a call relatively out of the blue from Tommy Lawton.
Well, yes, because I went to Teachers Training College to train as a PE teacher, and I qualified. But in that year, I wrote a letter to Notts County because I was playing at Longington and I wasn't getting in that much, and I thought, well, I can't be having this because I just want a game. I love a game of football. So I wrote a letter to Notts County saying, look, I've been at Derby County, they didn't think I was any good, but you don't think you could give me a game in your third team or something, because I would like to play on a Saturday. And I put my number in, and I got a phone call from Tommy Lawton. And he said, hello, it's Tommy Lawton here. And I thought, I could not believe I was talking to Tommy Lawton. And he says, you've written a letter to us. I said, I have. He said, I would like you to come on Saturday. I said, oh, God, I can't believe it. You told me what time to. Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. And I thought, this is it. This is it. So I turned up on the Saturday, and I was sub. Because at that time you could only have one sub, so at least I knew if the sub was going to get on, it was me, not one of the others that was sat at the side of me. So we're coming towards the end of the game, and I'm thinking, oh, get on. You're not going to put me on. And about, I don't know, 5-10 minutes from the end, they said, come on then. And they put me on. And because I was quick, I ran like lightning everywhere, honestly. And I never touched the ball. I never had a touch. The referee blew his whistle, and I went in the dressing room and I sat there with my head hanging. And they said, go down the office and they'll give you some expenses. And I said, yeah, okay. So I put the gear on, went down the office, gave me some expenses. That was it. And I thought, oh, I didn't get much time to make an impression there. And then on the Monday, I got a phone call at the college at Derby where I was. And I said, hello? He said, John, it's Tommy Lawton again. Oh, I said, yes, Tommy. He said, look, he says, we didn't think you had a fair crack at the whip. He said, we would like you to come and play on Wednesday, and we're at Mansfield Town away. Can you make it there? And I said, yeah, try and stop me. And so I thought, right, this is it. And I turned up on the Friday, and I was starting. And they said, where do you play? I said, centre forward. I always told them, I never, ever wanted to play wide. I always wanted to wear the number 9 shirt. And I hardly made it, but I thought, if I tell them, I'm not going to be stuck out on that wing. So there I was. And after about 20 minutes, I remembered, because the first team had lost on the Saturday to Lincoln. So they put people like Johnny Ryan and stuff in the reserve team. And he went, God, he was magic, wasn't he? He wound his way and he crossed this ball. And I don't tell a lie, it must have been about 4 foot in the air. And I sort of went horizontal and I volleyed it. And it almost bust the net. And after that, I could do no wrong. You know, I'm getting in the middle of things, the ball's slapping off my head somewhere and it's putting someone through. And I have to say, even though I said it myself, yeah, I was so fortunate that night things went for me. And after the game, Jack was there, Jack Wheeler. What a lovely man. What a lovely man. And he said, John, he said, fantastic. He says, wonderful. He says, I promise you, we will be in touch. We will be in touch. And so off we went, and I went back to college. And then not too long from that, I got to go, I think it was sort of the end of one season. There must have been a bit short of players, because it was before Jimmy came, just before Jimmy came, and we played away at York City, and of course I came straight from college into put the gear on away, and I think I scored. I nearly always scored at York in the nets. I nearly always scored, and I did, and I thought, bloody hell, oh, sorry, I think I might be all right. And I was lucky that it was right towards the end of the season, and then Jimmy came, and then he gave me a few games towards the end of the season, and I remember I made my debut away at Exeter. I can always remember that. I roomed with Dennis Oakes, and I didn't do an awful lot at Exeter. I don't think I ever did an awful lot at Exeter, but I didn't. And but then came I think I played a few more games, and then at the end of the season, they offered me a contract. Yeah, I'm in. I'm coming.
Can you remember how much the money was?
Oh, how much the money was? Yeah. You know, this morning I've been sorting some of my old contracts out. I've still got most of them.
Yeah. Right.
I was on 20 quid a week. They offered me 20 quid a week.
Okay.
Which was all right.
Okay.
Well, it was better than nothing, wasn't it? It wasn't a great deal better than nothing, but it was better than nothing. It was the following seasons where because I didn't know what the other players were on. I had no idea what the going rate was, yeah. And therefore, you know, if they'd have asked me to pay £20 a week, I would have given them £20 a week to play for Notts County.
So you've signed for Notts County.
Yes.
£20 a week. So Jimmy Sirrel is now the manager.
Yeah.
And so we are now gearing up for what was to prove to be a very, very memorable season in which the club stormed the 4th division. Now, looking at the stats, it's quite interesting. You missed the first game.
Yes.
And then you played the next 49 of that season, i.e. the championship season. Mm. And then you played every game of the following season as well, which is a quite remarkable run. How come you missed the first game?
Well, I wasn't selected for the first game, right, because I'd just come, and I think Johnny Hobson was in that position.
Right.
And he played the first game because he'd been there quite a while, and he was a good little player, Johnny Hobson. And then he was picked because he was picked for a League Cup game. I think that was the one that was against Aston Villa. Either that or the one before was a League Cup, and they played Aston Villa away from home. And during the game, Johnny Hobson hit Charlie Aiken, the Villa left back, and got sent off. And that was the reason that I played the next game.
Ah. And then you didn't miss another game for 2 years?
No. I was lucky injury-wise, but let's face it, you know, I knew my place. I knew that I was looking around at it. I thought, I can't believe that. What is? I could not believe. And of course, it was like at the back and the front, it was like the land of the giants.
Yeah.
And then you had one or two. Crickmore used to fly down the wing. The fullbacks were resolute, and the, I mean, you have to admit it. Masson was magic. Masson was, wow. I can still remember. As we said before, Bill would get the ball.
Bill Brinley.
Yeah, and he'd pass it to Masson, and I'd pull short for it, and Masson would look at me and say, "You don't want it there." And this is while the game is going on. You don't want it there. You want it there, and he would put it in there, and all I had to do was run and cross it, and luckily, and Brady, Barker, Hately were so good. They used to get on the end of my crosses. Now there wouldn't have been many people who would have got on the end of my crosses. Those three did. Those three did. And honestly, I knew that I'm here. I'm a bit player. I slot in. I know my place. I slot in there. I'm not a jinker. I couldn't pass for nuts, but you stick that ball in that corner, and I could cross it even if it was going out for throwing. And because I learned to, and because if I didn't do that during the week when we're having our practice matches, Hately would be going to Jimmy, get him off. Honestly, it was like that. But it was so good, and Paul, I was so lucky, so lucky. I was in, for one of the few times in my life, I was in the right place at the right time with people who could make me look like I could play football.
Clearly, one of the first things that Jimmy did was work out that you weren't a number 9 in terms of the way you'd sold yourself in on that trial game. So he's put you a wide man with Charlie Crickmore. A lot of the other players I've spoken to about that team, Jimmy had a straightforward, methodical approach with decent players. What were his strengths? What was he like?
I think when you say strengths, he played his strengths. He didn't want to build a team. He built a machine. I am sure he built a machine. And if someone was injured, he would slot another piece in, and they would still play the way that he wanted them to play. And even though he did that, he knew he had a little gem like Masson, who may not play to what he wanted him to do, but he might do something special that was even better. Because I have to say, he's one of the best I've ever played with. By far. I mean, he knows and he admits himself, he wasn't a particularly nice bloke on the pitch. You had to stand back and say, wow, how did he do that? He was like a little magician, and all the other cogs around him would play to the same thing. I can remember we'd be sort of through the game, and Don would pass me the ball wide out on the right, looking like you might not get to it, but I think you might. And Jimmy would go. Jimmy would blow his whistle and stop the game. And he would say, because Les Brad was coming towards me, and he would say, there's little Wesley. You don't run to the ball, you run away from the ball because the central defenders are going to come to the ball. And Nixon and Crickmore aren't going to play the ball to them. They're going to hang it up at the far stick. And we've got Barker, Brad, Haitley, and they're going to pulverise the keeper. And they did. It wasn't that people didn't know what the Notts side were going to do at that time, because they did. They knew what they were going to do, but they were so flipping good at it. And when you look at David Needham, you look at a class centre half, and what does he team up with? He teams up with a wall, a massive wall. Boom, boom. Honestly, he's the best I've ever seen at finding the ball. You know, the great headers could come, but they didn't beat Stubbsy. And even when I was the manager at Grantham, I got him to come to Grantham to play for me. Mainly because I've got Billy Brindley as my assistant manager. And Stubbsy at this time was leaving Notts, and he could go to league clubs. And he said, we met him in the pub, and he said, "Nah, I'm not going there." He says, I'll come with you, lads. And he did. And I won Manager of the Month. I still have a gallon bottle of whiskey in my utility room that I haven't opened, Mackenzie's whiskey, for Manager of the Month. Now, how the bloody hell do I get Manager of the Month? I do it the same way Jimmy Sirrel had done it. I put pieces in it in the jigsaw, and we played that way, mainly because, you know, I'd got a young guy called Tim Thacker who'd been at Notts County, and we had David McVeigh. You should have seen some of the away trips with Stubbs and McVeigh. But on the pitch, we took some beating.
So we go back to that 4th Division Championship season. You were the form team throughout. You set all sorts of records. What was it like to play in that team? Because I'm presuming you thought you were going to win basically every game with that group of players that you had.
Until we went to Rochdale. We got hammered at Rochdale. And mainly because we'd got Les Brad chasing Don Masson, not bothering about the ball. He was going to beat the living daylights out of him for 10 minutes.
Go on, what's that? I've not heard that one before.
It was just they had a little bit of banter and words were said
during the game.
During the game, definitely. And I don't think it helped us for the rest of the game that one of them was trying to catch the other. but they sorted it. They sorted it out eventually. The only places that we fell short were sort of horrible places like Hartlepool and Rochdale. I mean, if you could pick two that you think you might just have a bit of a dip at, you'd pick those, wouldn't you? Either Rochdale or Hartlepool. But I have to say that in the main, it was we ran away with it, and it was only because the side that Jimmy Sirrel had built was too good. He'd done the job. I mean, we used to play practice matches nearly every day, and he'd stand at the side with his whistle tied on his arm here. You'll have heard it. Yeah. And the game would be in full play, and then you see, and of course I'm nearest to it because he's on the touchline and I'm on the right, aren't I? And he used to bloody play right, didn't he? Right winger. And so many times he'd stop the game. Now I'd know, and he'd go, Jordan, haven't you got any brains? And I'd say, no, boss. And then he'd tell me what I should have done. But we sort of rehearsed almost every day. And then on Friday mornings, we'd work on free kicks. He loved the free kicks. He loved the free kicks. He was the one who, when he went to Lilleshall, and they had we used to have he had a wall built, a wooden type wall, and we'd practice on a Friday. And he was the one who, I think Malcolm Allison was there, one of the coaches, and they set the wall up as to how you should put the wall up, and they said, what do you think? And Jimmy put his hand up. He said, yes, Jimmy. He said, I should score. He said, I should score. And he stood up to it, and he did. He bent it round the wall, because he would practice himself to know what was possible and what wasn't possible. I tell you, he was a brilliant bloke. And, and some of the things that he would do was so funny, but he always had his mind on, he knew what he wanted. And he was absolutely, totally committed. And, I mean, he built the side, and he built so many sides. If you look during the years that he was there, he absolutely loved his football, and he loved it when he could say to us that Sirrel had rung him, because he was friends with Sirrel, and Sirrel was at his funeral, wasn't he? Yeah. And such a sort of, I mean, Jack Wheeler was entirely the opposite, and Jimmy would just about beat the living daylights out of Jack. Sort of when he's saying that he should have, and he kicked Jack, and Jack's going, oh, like that. But and I'll never forget the time when, I think it was Tony arguing on the pitch. You'll have heard it before. And we're in there at half time, and we're obviously one down. And Jimmy's, I'm trying. I just try and keep out the way. I try and keep out the way. And he said, "You." He said, "And you." He said, "If you want to effing fight, do it after the effing game. Do not do it on there." And he stamped on Jack's foot. He said, and then and similarly in practice, if ever anything like that happened, I remember in practice, I crossed the ball, hung it up. Roy Brown was playing in the reserves end to get some practice. Went up for the ball. Tony comes in, flatters him. And Roy gets up, and they're going to fight. And Jimmy's got his whistle, blowing his whistle like that. And so everybody stopped. You must have heard this before as well. And he said, right. He said, everybody get a partner about your own size. So we're all pairing up. He said, when I blow my whistle, I would like you to fight like, he said, if you want to fight, we'll fight. He said, if you want to play football, we'll play football. And that sort of calmed everybody down. He said, but yeah, you want to fight like hell.
Now, one thing a little bird tells me, he wasn't quite so good at medical diagnosis, at least when it came to you. So tell me when you were on the treatment table with Jack Wheeler.
Mm. It's funny you should mention that. Um, I look at Twitter a little bit, and there someone had put a description of this and got it exactly. I just forget who it was, but yeah, I'd had a Charlie horse, we used to call it, stretched my leg, and pulled the tendon a bit, and so I was on the treatment table. I think Les was on the other one, and Jack was there, and then Jimmy came in, and of course Jimmy always used to profess how he knew all about different injuries, and he'd done this and he'd done that. And he didn't say a word when he came in. He just came up to me. He said, he grabbed my leg and he said, twisted it and twisted it. He said, you feel that? You feel that? I said, no, boss. It just harder and harder. He said, feel that? I said, no, boss. He said, turn over. I turned over. Oh, it was like a wrestling match. He did all he could. I said, no. And then I turned over. He says, Jackson. He said, there's nothing wrong with him. And I said, it's the other leg, boss. And no, honestly, no word of a lie. Everyone else was staggering behind him whilst he was doing it. There was only him didn't know what was happening. And he never said a word. And I thought, I'm going to get a bollock in here. And he just turned and just walked slowly away. And then when he'd gone, everybody was, we were falling about laughing. It was so funny. And there were little things like that, and the same. We used to laugh when we used to go. You must have been told this one as well. We used to go to sit down for a meal when we went to stay in the big hotel, and he'd get his food, and then the waiters would come, and he would say, tomato sauce, please, tomato sauce. And they'd bring the tomato sauce, and all the lads in the quick, everybody knew, we're all looking at him, he's going to do it, he's going to do it, going to do it. And licked the top of the bottle in every big hotel. I did it every time. Absolutely every time. I've lost track of where I am now.
No, I mean, look, we all love stories about Jimmy, and there are so many of them. You've won the 4th division title at a canter. So you've gone up a division. He's kept largely. He's brought a few players in, but he's kept largely that same group of players, I guess, for obvious reasons, given how you've been speaking. Just missed out on a second successive promotion. But the following year, you got it right, but came from a very long way back in that final half of the season. And I think you got something like 13 goals in 19 games as the club got promoted. What can you remember about that season and that sort of run-in? And I think it was it Tranmere we beat on the final day to actually clinch the promotion into the old second division?
Yeah, you're testing my memory there. I scored in the first 2 minutes. I scored the first goal. We beat them 4-1, didn't we?
Yes, 4-1. Yeah.
Did, yeah.
That was the last game that clinched it. But the club had gone on a remarkable run, hadn't it, for about the last 3 months of the season?
Yes, it had. And I always remember, the thing I always remember about that was that it's about Les Brad's in at it. You see, because when we were in that season, there was a bit of a discrepancy between what players earned what, and all of a sudden, some of the lads got to find out that if we won a game, then I would get £4 extra in my pay packet. But But certain of my colleagues would get £40.
How much?
40.
And how much did you get?
4.
Okay. So a £40 win bonus for some players.
Yeah.
And you playing every week.
Yeah.
On something like 70 consecutive appearances.
Yeah.
Get 4.
Yeah.
So I'm presuming you weren't very happy.
Yeah, but there was nothing I could do about it. And wait till you speak to Les, because I would come in for training, and Les was one of the 40s. Yeah, and Les would say, "Hey, Johnny," he said, "we had a lovely meal on you the other night." I'd say, "Thanks, Les." But it was funny. It was not that it made any difference how you played when you're out there, but yes, it was. It did cause a few little ructions here and there, because it wasn't very often that people got to know what other people's wages were. It didn't happen. And of course, we had no agents, did we? You know, you'll have heard this as well, Paul. You would have heard the same story, that at the end of the season we all queued up, and Mickey Jones, I'm sure you are here, and he'd come out now. And everybody,
you'd all be queuing up to go and see Jack Dunnett, wouldn't you?
Yes.
Yes.
And of course, Mr. Dunnett was Mr. Dunnett. Brilliant fella. Absolutely. Magical bloke. He never mixed his words. He never, ever mixed his words. If he said something, it would happen. And he did. You're not going anymore. That's it. And it was like when, we'll come to that, but it was amazing that there was such camaraderie that when we're on the pitch, nobody often, people don't think about the money, do they? And it was such a fantastic season that it looked at one stage as though we were going to dip out.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we came with a rush at the end, and of course, that's it. Don't ask me why. I scored sort of 3 or 4 goals the season before, and then all of a sudden, after we played Southend, I think it was, I could not stop scoring. Having said that, part of the secret was that I now had an ally, because I always wanted to wear the number 9 shirt, and I had Kevin Randall, who was playing up the middle, who loved to get out on the left or on the right with his claw. You know, they used to call him the claw, and it made him 2 yards faster. And he used to say, "Do you want to switch?" Yes. And I'd get in the middle, and whether I was any good or whether I wasn't any good, I had no idea. But there were odd occasions that were getting more and more common where I was getting in the right position to knock him in the net. And what a lovely bloke Kevin was. And he's out there wide, and he's saying to me, "Come on." I said, "No, you stop out there. You stop out there. I'm all right in here." Oh, we had some great times. Lovely, lovely fella.
Now, one of the games, and it's quite an historic, I mean, I missed it for the book. I tried to get as many things into the book at 600 pages as I could, but I missed the Portsmouth game. I missed the Portsmouth game and the 3 missed penalties. Were you playing in that game?
Now, you're going to ask me that. And at one stage, I would have been able to tell you, I think I was, but there's something on my computer a carousel or something, that all of a sudden they've changed it. It had reports on all the 30, 40. I mean, it still does it to a certain extent, but it doesn't give the commentaries. So, and this morning I've been trying to key through there, and I couldn't find that one. So you tell me, Paul.
Well, I don't know, but 3 players missed a penalty all in the same game. Don missed one. I'm surprised he didn't take the second.
Yes.
Kevin Randall took it, did he, and missed?
Probably
and then I think Brian Stubbs took it and missed. But I might be wrong on that. But clearly you don't remember much about it.
No, but then I would be like that after most games.
Hey, I tell you what, let's gloss over that one completely, right? Okay, we'll edit that one out even.
Sorry.
Right, we'll edit that one out. Here's a game that I know you played in. I think you played in. You've got into the top 2 divisions of English football. Yeah?
Yeah.
Crystal Palace?
Christmas Palace.
Crystal Palace. Opening game.
Yep.
In that team, or managing that team, was a certain Malcolm Allison, correct?
Correct.
And Little Notts County were given no chance. This was the aristocrats of Crystal Palace. And they had all the...
We were missing Brad, Carlin and Needham.
That's right. And Crystal Palace had, a long way ahead of their time, all those like fancy tracksuit tops with nicknames on the back. I remember I'd have been about 11 years old with my dad, and they had things like the Joker and the Entertainer and the Magician on the back. Talk me through that day, because it was an historic performance, wasn't it, really?
Yeah, it was. It was. It was something that I think we were sort of blown away, because they scored first, and I thought, oh my God, here we go. And then when we scored, they sort of petered out a little, and then we got another, and then we got the third, and then we got the fourth. We could not believe it. And we got sort of young players in, hadn't we? You know, Dave McVeigh.
Dave McVeigh.
Was it? We've spoken about him already. Came in as a midfielder later on. Eric Probert.
Eric Probert, yeah.
Mickey Vinter came in, because he'd be sort of on the verge at that stage. You know, Mickey would come to the fore later, and sort of after I'd gone almost. That yes, but I can't remember who got the other.
What was it like on the bus home? Because I would imagine Jimmy and the players took quite a bit of pride from that, because Notts were very unfashionable. Palace were the big London team, weren't they? And for their first game in the second division, that was a huge result.
Yeah, it was. I mean, obviously everyone's singing and dancing on the way home, because no one expected it. We didn't expect it. Particularly having 3 key players who were out of the side, but the rest of the lads played out the skin, really did.
Now, he's got a book coming out as we speak, and we've mentioned the name. So Don Masson. So
yes,
what was Don like? Because there were 2 facets to Don, weren't there? There was Don the footballer, who we as the fans saw, and was clearly the jewel. You know, if you asked most fans, the best ever player in a black and white shirt, I think it would be near on certain that Don Masson would top any supporters poll who would have seen that era.
Yeah. I think we'd all agree with that.
But it's kind of come out more recently. Came out a little bit in my book. Came out in Dave McVeigh's book, and this isn't it. This is something that Don is addressing himself in his own book. That there was Don the footballer, and then there was Don the person.
Yeah.
And by Don's own admission, he wasn't always a nice person in that dressing room. Talk me through Don Masson.
Really. See, I'd spend quite a bit of time with Don, because we used to play golf together every week.
Okay.
And he was the same when he was playing golf. There were sort of, there was a blind side to him that, I don't know what it was. And even he'll now admit it. He knows, or from what people have said to him of his behaviour, he was deadly. And I don't know what promoted it. I don't know whether it's got to be mental, hasn't it? And I don't know if it's that he's playing with players who he knows are inferior. I don't know if it was that, but in the main, when I was with Don, he was all right. But there were just occasions where John will admit it, that he wasn't a nice person.
Did you, as fellow players, always think Don was destined to go on to play at a much higher level?
Yeah, I think you'd have to, because he was. He was like the man at the
orchestrator, or conductor. The conductor.
He dictated it. He had the ability to do that. He had the vision. He had the know-how. He knew the players. That's why when I showed for the ball, he won't give it me, because I'd have lost it. Well, I may not have lost it, but if he sticks it behind the fullback, I know I'm going to get to it before he would. There weren't many number threes or fullbacks at that occasion that were as quick as I was. And also, I knew where it was going. They didn't. I knew where he was going to put it. And his ability to time, it was the timing and the weight of the pass that made it so easy. I didn't have to control it. He put the pace on the ball. He knew how far that ball was going to roll, on whether it was a bobbly pitch, whether the grass was a bit longer. He knew. He made it either that or I was quicker than he thought I was.
I mean, I think Don said himself that he got the move to Queen's Park Rangers, and straight away he was in a team that finished runners-up in the top flight. And I think Don said he wasn't himself any better as a player. He he was playing with better players in that top division. Yeah. I mean, his skills stood out a long way off to everybody, didn't it? Was there any jealousy among the players or not? Or you spoke earlier about this camaraderie?
Yeah, there was a lot of camaraderie. I can remember one occasion where it was when I was at Teachers Training College. I'd come and train on some occasions, and Jack Wheeler was taking the training. I don't know if it was just before Jimmy came or Jimmy wasn't there that day, but we did all the workouts, and then we were having a bit of a game to finish. I don't think it was. We used to train at the racecourse. I think it was someone else that we were training before, but it was definitely a football pitch. And Don went to take a corner, and Richie Barker ran for it. You heard it. Richie Barker ran short. Don! And Don chipped it over his head, and the goalkeeper called for it. And Richie said, "What do you do that for?" And Don said, "Well, you don't want it out here. You want it in there." And then it got to fisticuffs, and Jack was there, and you can imagine, Jack, oh, you bloody man, and then he's blowing his whistle, and we cut the training short. But Don was like that at times. No explanation for it. But he'd know. I'm sure he'd know, because, or he, in later on, he's probably give me a bollock because I've not ordered his book yet. But I will.
It will be a very good read. I'm absolutely sure. And people in the 1980-81 promotion team back into the top flight, Trevor Christie's been on this show, would all speak very, very highly of Don and the help and fatherly advice that he gave. And Don spoke to me that in his first stint, not the greatest, but he did. But he did change. But he did.
He was probably still growing up.
All good things come to an end at Notts. So you've hardly missed a game. You start another season in the old second division, it then was. And it was 3 or 4 games. And then you ended up being sold to Peterborough, I think I'm right in saying. How did that departure come about?
Well, it was sort of the September time, I think. And, of course, then we've now got the 2 younger lads, haven't we? We've got Scanlon and Flash. And let's face it, they can play. They can both play. Now that if you've got 2 wide men or 2 players on your side like that adds to it, doesn't it? And I, there's no way I could have been like Flash, and there's no way I could have been like Scanlon, because they both had massive talent, And when I got the call from Jack Dunnett, I knew I was going to get it, because I think I'd had a game in the reserves, and Barney had rung me, John Barnwell, and John was at
Peterborough,
and he said, "Don't have too good a game tonight." He said, I said, "All right." He said, "You'll find out. You'll find out." And then I got the call from Jack, and went to see Jack Dunnett, and he said, like he said, "I've had an offer for you, and you're going to go." He said, "If you don't go, you'll be second team football." So he said, "In my advice, John, I would go." He said, "And they're going to pay 15,000 quid for you." He says, "And we can't afford not to take it." And that was it. Thanks very much, Mr. Dunnett. He was very similar to when we'd gone in for a rise. He was the bloke was forthright. He just said it as it was, and that was it. I sort of, and I can see that, Notts are getting at a higher level, and they need better players, and I'm sort of, I know my place. I know my place. I was lucky to be in there at the right time. I had some good ability at certain things, but you can't replace what they've got with what I've got. So yeah, they deserved it. They could play, and you've got a side that's climbing the divisions. So it was better for me to get out, and they gave me an opportunity, didn't they? I mean, they gave me an opportunity to knock Brian Clough's side out of the FA Cup.
Go on.
Well, when I was at Peterborough, we drew Nottingham Forest in the FA Cup. Just in the new year, and we played at the Forest, and it was a cold, wetish night, and we drew 0-0. And then we had the replay, and I've got some good bits on it from the internet, and I sort of, we were playing, and I went to do a tackle with Ian Bowyer, and he went over the top, definitely, and sort of gouged my knee, and of course the sight of blood. Oh dear! There wasn't a lot. There didn't need to be. Didn't need to be a lot, but he'd take the chunk out just below my knee, and I limped to the side, and doctor came. Noel Campbell came, the manager, and the doctor looked at it and he said, "It's a bad one." And Noel said, "How long will it take you to stitch him up?" And the doctor said, 5 or 6 minutes. And what he actually said, I'll not say, but he said, "Go and stitch him up." So they took me to the dressing room. No anaesthetic, wasn't I brave? And they put 6 stitches in my knee and put some crepe, something around it, and sent me out again. And to be fair, he didn't feel too bad. And almost my first kick, a fella called Jimmy Walker, who went on to be the physio at Aston Villa. He'd been in Clough's side at Derby. Brian Clough had given permission for him to play because he'd come on loan for a short spell. And he worked magic on the left and crossed the ball. And I've got the photograph of me just beating Frank Clark and volleying it into the goal. Oh, what a wonderful feeling that was. And we beat them 1-0. And after the game, I was drinking champagne out of the boots. And I didn't play again until we got through to the next round when we played Manchester United at Old Trafford. And we played at Old Trafford. They beat us 3-1. It was on the telly. 56,000. I'd never seen 56,000 before. And after the game, my stitches had burst open. So I have to go to their physio, and the doctor there stitching me up again. And one of the Irish players came and he said, "Oh, it's a nasty one." And yeah, but they beat us 3-1, 56,000. What an experience. So yes, wonderful.
Okay. We've spoken at length about one great Notts County manager, Jimmy Sirrel. I think for many Notts fans, the most successful manager, certainly delivered many promotions for us since, was Neil Warnock. And of course, you would have come across Neil on several occasions. Yes. And I think you also, in a roundabout way, had a little bit of a role about helping Tommy Johnson get his first game in a Notts shirt, correct?
Yeah, I think so. I'm sure they played it.
Yeah. Talk to me about you and Neil.
Neil and I, even when he played at Aldershot, when I was at Notts and we played Aldershot. He was at Barnsley, and I went to Barnsley. We both were there at the same time for a few games, and then I'm not quite sure where he left, and went all over the place. And then we both played for Burton Albion, twin strikers, Nixon and Warnock. He was probably more devastated than I, and I wore a number 9, and I was Burton Albion's top goal scorer for 2 seasons, And I took the penalties and got one over the stand at the far end. It was only a low stand, but it was still rising as it went over it.
What was Neil like? Did you think he would be a manager?
He got the banter for it. He's always had the banter for it, hasn't he? You look at, everyone must have seen on the scene where he was in the dressing room, and I mean, he's a great bloke. He really is a great bloke. We had some fantastic times when we were there, and he broke his arm whilst he was playing, because we were sort of the twin strike force at the front, and we had lots of John Winfield played.
John Winfield.
Peter, Kevin Hector played at Burton Albion, and Nixon was the top goal scorer. You see, when they put a number 9 on my back, I used to think Ian Storymore was fantastic, and to play for him was absolutely wonderful. And not only did I play for him then, but after we're working further on now, and I might be, I'm rambling, but I would encounter Warnock again when I took over as manager and Billy Brindley took over as assistant manager at Grantham.
Yeah. And
Neil was at Burton Albion.
Yeah.
And then there are a few times that when Mickey Jones, when Mick and I was driving past, if it was lunchtime-ish, I'd sort of knock on the door and we'd go and have a, not a bite to eat. I don't know what's to think about. But we'd have a coffee, and we were in the coffee there, and we were having a chat, this and that, and then Mickey Jones said to me, he said, what about? He said, we've got this young lad here. He says, and Neil and I are having a discussion. Do we play? Don't we play? And I said, if you're even thinking that you might play him, you've got to play. You owe it to him. You can't not play him. You either say, he's not good enough, we're not playing him, or you say, how do we know if he's good enough? Because we've not played him yet. And I said, play him. And they said, we'll play him. And it was Tommy Johnson. They were debating. He must have been on the verge at that time. And, well, I think I made the right decision.
Very good. Very good story. So, what are you up to post-football? Because you've been in Northern Ireland for quite a while now, haven't you?
Yes, been here. Came over 2011. Built a house over here, bought some land, built a house, and you can just see the Mourne Mountains out the back there. And love it. And what I forgot to say was I did manage a club over here.
Okay.
I hope you can't see that thing.
Not Star Landing in tiny Tullyvallen?
Yes, Tullyvallen. And we've got a fantastic ground and clubhouse, and they came to open it for us, and we played. See him?
Push it up a bit.
Linfield.
Ah, okay. And I saw a photograph of you somewhere on social media of a former Notts goalkeeper with you, Roy Carroll.
Yes, because he played in goal that day.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and yes, so they came and opened the stadium for us, and in our second season of the Division 2 Mid Ulster League.
Okay, yeah.
Manager won the league and the cup. Had some good players, and half of them's gone up. They go over here, they go all over the world. Not playing football, they just go over the world, all over the world, Australia, New Zealand, and I lost half my side. So I will still go and watch them, but I've sort of taken a bit of a backseat because the weather's so cold out here, and when you're my age and on a Tuesday and a Thursday night, you've got to get off down there and take the train or be at the train, too cold.
And also, am I right in thinking, did you work for or work with David Needham after you'd finished playing?
Yes. Oh gosh, what I didn't do.
So, what was it with David? You and partnering up?
David and I have always been big friends and got together, and for a long time we were roommates. And I'm the godfather to his daughter. And so we've known each other for years. I haven't seen him for years now, because obviously we used to get together on the former Knots players. Am I sitting out the sun again?
No, you're fine. You're fine, John.
So wind me up again.
I'll wind you up. So you worked with Dave Needham after you'd finished. You were close friends, you were saying.
Yeah. When I went to help him at Kettering Town as his assistant manager, because Don left as manager.
Yeah.
David took over. David Needham took over. And of course, he needs somebody to do all the work, so that's why he collared me. And there we are. We had a half decent. We even had Dave Watson playing for us.
Yeah.
So I did that for a short period, and whilst I was working for David, because he had a company that they do car number plates, and so car number plates, it's a £30 million market, and we had little machines where people, and it printed the plates, and then so I went all over I was the only salesman. I went all over the country, fogging these number plates. What day is it today?
I think it's a Tuesday.
Yeah, you see, this time on a Friday, I'd still be somewhere down in Maidstone.
He had you working, did he? He had you working hard.
He had me working, but I was good at what I did because I enjoyed it. And then they decided that they'd sold the company, and of course, I'm the only salesman. So I've got the contacts, haven't I? And I enjoyed it. So I applied my wares elsewhere, and I've got other people who had work competitors, and I went and was their sales director, and yeah, I used to love it. I really did used to love it, and it was, the revenue was good. It was very, very good. And now I'm retired, thank God.
I've got to say as well, John, fantastic stories. You speak about the club and relate them with great passion, great fun. And I've also got to say, at 72, you've done remarkably well that this is your first ever Zoom call, correct? We had to get you to download the app, yeah? And I didn't hold out a lot of hope, if I'm honest with you. Steve Cherry, a lot younger than you, doesn't look a lot younger than you. We could only get the sound on him, but you've done remarkably well. You've done remarkably well.
Paul, if I am honest, my wife Tracy has gone about 10 miles away to look after my granddaughter Esme, and Tracy's looking after Well, my daughter has her own beauty salon over here, and she's working there. And here I am, and I've been getting ready for this morning, and then I had a look at my computer, and also it said it's updated. What? It's updated. What? How can it be updated? I haven't pressed anything. I mean, I'm not good with them, but I had pressed nothing, I promise. And it wouldn't go. And so I rang Tracy and said, the computer's got it's updated. And she said, well, that'll be all right. I said, it doesn't look like it's updated. And I thought, oh my goodness me. And I said, well, you might have to bring Mike is my son-in-law's laptop. She said, well, I will do. She said, I'm just going to Great Grand's with Esme. And then I said, well, I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you in a minute. And then I went upstairs because I've got an old computer up there. And I switched that on. And I looked at it and I thought, Wally, what a Wally. It's got no camera. So I'm back downstairs, and I'm sitting and thinking, it's got to go. It's got a blank screen. And then all of a sudden it came to life just before you. Oh, was I panicking?
You've done remarkably well, and you can now Zoom Dave Needham. You can Zoom Don Masson, assuming they can know how to do Zoom, all around the world. It's a neat little bit of kit, and you can now video call anywhere around the world with this.
It's very good, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very good. Bit of technology, eh? I don't know how Jimmy Sirrel would have got on with a Zoom call, to be honest with you, but he might have struggled.
I would suggest that. He would have struggled. I would have thought that he would have struggled.
Did you ever get in the car with him?
I'll tell you the one that it must be the same one. He came in one morning and he said, I've had a bit of a problem with the car. Yep. He said, I've bought like a concrete, a smallish concrete. He said, I can't understand, because if the front end goes through, surely, this is wicked accent, isn't it? If the front end goes through, surely the back has to follow. Let it down. And he got it. It scraped it, and it was. Is that the one you're talking about?
It wasn't, but go on.
He'd still got it on the side there, and it was the lad. We had to go out and lift him off. Scratched all the side.
He got the car stuck on this concrete pillar in the car.
Yeah, and of course, because it was only two-wheel drive, he's trying to drive it, and only one wheel's on the ground, so the other one's spinning. Yeah, I thought that was the one that you might.
No, I mean, everyone, I mean, Jimmy and driving are quite legendary, aren't they? Don always tells the great story because Don used to live in Burton Joyce, the same village as Jimmy. And so Jimmy, who was a workaholic, would always drive all over the country to watch matches.
Yeah. And
he would often say to Don, you can come with me. It was kind of one of them invitations where you couldn't say no to.
Can't turn him down.
And so Don has to get in the car with Jimmy, who drives to Torquay and back on a Tuesday night or Wednesday night to watch a game like that for 500 miles.
Yeah, he was a bad driver. He was a bad driver.
But
I never.
Go on.
No, this is not about Jimmy. This is just a story that I've got time for.
Yeah, go on.
We were going to training one morning, and we were going to the race course, and there was a bridge.
Yeah, I know it. Yeah.
And a
The
double-decker
railway line.
bus.
Over the railway line.
Bus had got stuck underneath it. And you're never going to believe this. Because we're all there, and Ray O'Brien said, "Why are you let the tyres down?" And I thought, "Bells, he's the Irish lad, and he knows what to do. Because it might go with letting the tyres down."
Yeah.
And I thought, well, Ray, all credit to you. Finished now.
I think it's fair to say Jimmy's management skills were a lot better than his driving skills. John, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Great stories, great banter. Thank you very much indeed. And, you know, one of the reasons for working with you this week, of all weeks, is that it is the 12th anniversary of the passing of Jimmy. And, you know, he quite rightly is and always will be a true legend of the club.
There are legends and there are legends. He was a legend. And I was fortunate to be around him when he was doing his thing. Brilliant fella. Really enjoyed this. Thanks.